How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is RuffledRowlit, and welcome to Ruffled Leaks. We've got the last Ruffled Leaks video that I'll be doing for you guys, specifically because the DLC is coming out, but I've got some stuff I want to talk about quickly before the actual DLC comes out, basically tomorrow night for Americans. And speaking of that, here is the exact times you guys can expect, or give or take the times you guys can expect the actual release of this tomorrow. Maki and J Roses, shout out to them from PokeOS, who basically said, if we take the release times of the first DLC as reference, these should be the possible times for the release of the Indigo disc. It had to be said though, that for the first DLC, that will be released during the morning in Japan. No other details were released this time. If there's any news, we will update you. Yes, we know Pokemon home maintenance starts at 9 a.m. in Japan. We repeat, these are just approximated times. But yes, it should be happening between 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. in Californian, standard time. Washington, D.C. is going to be, well, I say standard time, but yeah, just Californian time. Washington, D.C. is going to be 6 p.m. until 9 p.m., anywhere between that period. I'm going to argue and say that it's probably around 5 p.m. here for California, or, around that time, kind of like right down the middle for all of these. Brazil, between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. I guess the UK and Portugal, 11 p.m., 2 a.m., and then, of course, Central Europe, which is where I am at, it's going to be between midnight and 3 in the morning. I'm assuming it's going to be 2 a.m. for me. So if you just do the comparison here, 2 a.m. for me, and just you can kind of just compare it to yours, and you can figure it out from that. But that's basically the time I'm expecting it. India, it's 4:30 to 7:30 a.m. in the morning. Japan, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. So any time in between there, and Canberra, so that's Australia, I'm guessing, would be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., right? So that's pretty much as far as we know for that. Of course, this is subject to change, but I'm assuming it's going to be in the middle of these. So it's not going to be exactly on these times, but in between these times, I'm thinking like 1 hour before the second times, right? Because you got a first time on the left here, you got a second time on the right there. If you look at the second time and go back 1 hour, I think that's when it's going to drop, personally. Based on some other stuff that I've heard, is that seems like the most likely time for it to drop. But that's only the first thing we're talking about. We also have loads of posts from different people. I guess it seems loads of them. One of the first things, of course, we have RiddlerCoo, who's been posting a bunch of weird stuff, but we're going to start with this one right here saying, what's the type effectiveness of this type? Now, this type is specifically him saying Stellar. This is supposed to be the new temporary typing. And the problem with this typing is, what's it going to be effective against? I think it's going to be neutral against everyone, right? I think it's going to do the same amount of damage for every typing, but it's going to be super effective against itself. I think it's going to be super effective against other stellar types, which might be a bit, I don't know, what's the point of it then? I don't really know, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily super effective against anyone. As for people down here, people are saying like, it might resist all 18 types, but it takes neutral damage from the type that matches the user's Terra type. Ooh, that's actually a really cool concept from Amashina. So basically, he's implying that it will be resisting all the other 18 types, fire, water, whatever, right? But it takes neutral damage, right? So general damage from typings that match the user's Terra type. So if the user has like a Terra type that's water, and you use, like a water move on him, then it might do more. I guess that's kind of the way you could look at it. But then also takes super effective damage from all 19 Terra types, which is interesting. Similar to the shield and the Terra raid. So yeah, again, could be super effective against like itself, but regular neutral damage against others. That's like what I feel like most people are agreeing on. I don't really know what else it could be doing, but that seems like the one thing that's being kind of said by everyone. The next tweet he put out was this one. Now, this one's really interesting because he asked us what's beneath this place. And this is, if you guys remember, was this one weird location down in Area 0. I remember I actually explored this location. I always wondered to myself, what is this exactly? Like, I've been in this place, but what exactly is this place? And guess what? We might be going down there, because he basically said, what's this place? And then he posted this image saying imagination, realization, illusion, conception, nothing, everything. And then some, I'm guessing, Chinese words there, which were flower, one world, one tree, one body. And if we just like actually watch what he's showing here, it's just a zoom in from the trailer that goes all the way down to Area 0, and underneath, this is the entrance to where the time machine thingy happens. So like basically where you battle AI, Sada, and Turo. That's what's inside of there. But it goes beyond that. It goes further down into the depths. And that's where we find this crystal thing, as well as the giant tree, right? That's where this big tree is located. So again, very strange, but he's talking about imagination, realization, illusion, conception, everything. Basically this idea that this is the source of all the things that have been created. These imaginary Pokemon, these invented Pokemon, where reality meets, fiction, where, things are a bit complicated because they can be an illusion, or is it reality, or, what's the difference between a reality and something that isn't real? Like, just basically a bunch of these things are going to be questioned in this place. Like, this is where all of those questions will maybe be answered finally. Like, we might have answers to all the big questions for this game. There are a few thoughts from other people. I'm going to take a look at those in a second. But let's continue to the next thing that Ku posted. Now remember, if you guys don't know who this guy Ku is, this is Riddler Ku. He's a legitimate leaker. The man has real info, but he also posted this. Now this is a new item. This is the Synchro machine, I think, at least based on what he posted here, because he actually knew what it was going to be called a while back. He said Synchro machine, right? And this was from a previous post where he said Terra Piece Stella. So stellar type and then the Synchro machine. And then this, I guess, is what the item's going to look like. This is the Synchro machine that's going to connect your mind to your Pokemon, and you're going to be able to control them. As for when we get this into the story, that's not very clear, but we are going to be able to synchronize with our Pokemon, and some people have talked about the possibility that maybe this Synchro machine into the future, maybe not now, but into the future, might be a feature they will be bringing back, but on a larger scale. And what we're seeing right now, it's just a testing phase, right? Them testing out, like, ooh, what do people think about them controlling a Pokemon and them being the Pokemon? Like, what do people think about that? Because they often do this in the side games. They test features. I mean, really, Crown Tundra, with how freely open it was, like the DLC, was a test phase for them to try out how open world might work in a small, secluded area. Then they made Legends Arceus, where they made a fully kind of open zones, not really a full open world, but zones that were larger than, like, you know, the kind of like wild area from Pokemon Sword and Shield. And then in Scarlet and Violet, they finally went full-on open world for everything. And now they're testing other new features that might be relevant in future games. This is where I think the Synchro machine will be a hint towards the next games. I think possibly in whatever this next game might be, whether it's a Paradox Unova game in 2024, or if it's a Johto game, I think we might have this Synchro ability back in a different way. Like, we might be able to control Pokemon more so than we, you know, have ever been able to do before within a mainline Pokemon game. Because you guys know in Mystery Dungeon, you literally are the Pokemon. But in this case, it seems like we're going to be able to do it again. I apologize. I just need to get myself a little drink because my throat is getting dry. I have been talking a lot today, but moving on though. So this was one of the things he posted. And the second thing though, is that there's a lot of posts from other people who've been sharing their thoughts. So one of them, for example, is Soul. He's been sharing some thoughts about what the final form of Terapagos, for example, would look like. But that's just one thing we're going to take a look at a bit later. Like I said, there are a few like thoughts about specifically that tree down there. So let's go like little by little here. Let's see what first we want to talk about. So first of all, the Synchro machine, we'll come back to that and how that could be a future feature. Let's talk about this one first. So this is a drawing here by Jeremon, who said, Terapagos final form. This is my version of Terapagos' final form. I feel like this is the best possible version I can make with imagination. So here is what Soul says. I adore this artwork, so well done, but I'm pushing back against the idea that it will, I think majority believe. I don't think Terapagos' form will be too similar to the drawing in the book. I think it'll be more diverse and epic, but I could be wrong too. So this is kind of like that artwork we saw in the book. Again, if this is going to look like this, I don't know. I really don't know, but we're kind of have to, you know, gonna have to wait and see how that goes. We're gonna have to wait and see how that turns out. For now, we'll just have to wait and see. But that's pretty much what I've got in regards to that. So that's the first thing. Next up, we're definitely going to be seeing, you know, like a little bit of that design coming back in here. Next thing, which is going to be this post right here. Now, this is a mega post, so keep in mind, this is a big post. But basically, I had to propose both sides, but the truth is that the hidden treasure of Area Zero being a tree that produces fruit, there are actually just Terra crystals that can be planted to create wish-granting power spots, like the crystal pool, lines up perfectly with the treasure being fruit or stones, like in the Scarlet and Violet book. It says or because it depends on how we look at it. This tree may produce fruit, which are technically just stones. The reason I think this tree could be important is because in the trailer, the AZ music stops right when we see this tree, making it feel important. Also, the official Pokemon site says what exactly is the hidden treasure and shows this scene of the tree. The tree could be the source of both Terra Crystals and Herba Mystica. So he's talking about this tree, of course, that we've seen before. And if we go back to his previous post here, he has been talking about a few different things. Like, for example, here, I don't think people understand that if we follow the Heath's Scarlet and Violet book, it says about the legendary treasure. This says that it's in the depths and deepest parts of Area Zero. Stones and fruit have long slept and guarded by the Light Guardian, Terapagos. These have to be the biggest clues on what the hidden treasure of Area Zero is. The same depth location and Guardian are mentioned, so the treasure must be the same too, right? And you guys can see Area Zero. Ledges form a spiral down the inner walls of Area Zero, forming a path of descent. Vegetation and sources of water are here as well. Legends tell the precious stories of wondrous fruits that slept in Area Zero's depths, protected by some manner of guardian. The legendary treasure. Countless days into our descent, we reached the last very depths of the Great Crater. There we found a cave with formations of gemstones, shining blindingly bright as far as we could see. Perhaps the strange light itself is the guardian sent to watch over treasures deep within the crater. Of course, it seems like that could be the case. Again, if we just keep watching this part right here, you guys will see the tree and all the glittering, you know, like gemstones and everything. It's all there. But again, like he says, is this tree the one that gives birth to these Terra Crystals and the Herba Mystica, perhaps? And this comes from, you know, him kind of talking about this back, on the 7th of December when the trailer came out, saying, wow, the deepest parts of Area Zero is looking wild. Many are thinking that this tree might be important, and that it's the origin of the Herba Mystica and its hidden treasure itself. He continues on saying, on this same theme, I do wonder if Dokutaro and Glimora are connected to each other and to this tree. Scarlet and Violet have always suggested that Glimora is special. Especially, okay, that it's only found near Terra Crystals. Glimora might be the literal crystal flower from this tree, and Dokutaro could be one special type of fruit produced by the tree. Fruit and flowers follow each other. A singular corrupted fruit produced by the tree. So instead of producing the Terra Crystal fruit, it produced this piece of bad fruit. A corrupted Glimora produced by the tree, and if the tree produces Glimora, maybe one time a flower died and became a Dokutaro, so that could be the case. Lastly, before all is revealed, I must admit that I've been convinced that Terapagos is the guardian of the hidden treasure due to the Scarlet and Violet book. But in the final Koraidon battle, they had the title of the Guardian of Paradise. Paradise itself probably isn't the tree, though. Paradise could be the world that the tree would produce if the tree was left to grow into the world. So it is possible that Koraidon and Miraidon were the Pokemon of brilliant light that he thought was the guardian of the treasure. Or is that just what the AI Taranturo called Koraidon Miraidon because they wanted to guard the paradise that they were creating? They wanted to copy and replicate the paradise and probably guardian that they heard about in Heath's book. Hopefully we'll get answers soon. So yeah, this is again a very strange situation because this could legitimately go any direction. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens though, because I mean, we're literally a day away now. We're gonna be able to see it very, very soon. So we're gonna be jumping into that, talking about it, and seeing what there is to say about it. But we have one more thing. If you guys have seen this map in the trailer, quickly just want to point out, just like was being said here by Yordan, this is just the actual map of the Blueberry Academy itself, of the dome, right? So in case somebody's wondering about that, there you go. That's what it's specifically referring to. It's literally the 4 segments of it, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, moving on to the next thing. So this is a pretty cool one, but basically same kind of tree. Also, maybe based on a fig tree, but while many think Kieran's new hairstyle looks like an onion, to me it looks more like a purple fig. So you guys can see right here, we have a tree, and this is the same kind of tree that we see in the general world when we run around outside in Paldea, right? But if you look at his back of his head, it does look like I guess a purple fig. Now, if you look up what a purple fig specifically is, it is basically, let's see, I'm guessing is this right here. It's a sort of, I guess it grows into trees, like you use it to grow certain trees, like a purple fig, specifically that tree. I think I've smelled these things before. But yeah, so that's basically what he's referring to. And it does kind of look like that on his head, which is very strange. Kind of a weird shape. Speaking of his hair, actually, there is an interesting thing to mention about his hair. And I think somebody actually made a really great post about this because there are a lot of things to say about him. But here, Soul shared this saying, has anyone ever noticed this? So if you guys look at, for example, Jetsis here, if you look at his hairstyle, he has like these 3 pieces that go back. If you ever look at his hairstyle from Kieran, it's the exact same 3 pieces of like hair that are flinged back. And if you look at this design right here, it's kind of got the same hairstyle going on to it. Evil guy, right? Got hair going backwards. By the way, I freaking love Kieran. I love that he's a piece of shit. I love it. I love it so much. Makes me so happy. But again, it's a bit strange, right? I'm once again asking if most of it, not all of the characters, New Blueberry Academy characters are related to Unova characters, but maybe these are. Like, I know it's a far-fetched one, but honestly, they've already been making connections to everyone else, like Drayden and, Drayton and whatnot. So there are connections, right? It's not as if we're working with nothing here. But I just thought I would bring that up because I thought it was pretty cool. But that's one of the things. Moving on to the next one. So we've gone through this one. We've gone through... Oh, this is actually new. So I agree about Terapagos, as you can see from the post on my main Soul Silver account, but I'm still uncertain on an imagination versus time travel. I see a way for both. I lean time travel because Game Freak is actually take it at face value, but with what Ku's saying about Sapiens and all that. So what is he talking about here? Well, basically, it's an old post that he's referring to here from Kayla saying, something I really don't understand is how people can watch the Pokemon anime and still back the dream theory when the anime literally shows how Terapagos' power works, and it's consistent with the game lore so far, especially with the Crystal Pool, right? So again, it's this idea, we're talking about this, whole dream theory and stuff, but what he says here is, kind of the, because you really have two ways of looking at this. Is it time travel or is it all just imaginary, right? And here's what he said. I think fans might be mistakenly assuming that Terapagos is the source and or cause of the turning imagination dreams to reality, or the cause for the time travel. It's officially mentioned that Terapagos is primarily two things. One, it's the source of our Terra Crystals, and two, it's the guardian of a special treasure. This should lead us to believe that the Terra Crystals themselves are actual sources that make these phenomena occur. Terapagos might not be a dream Pokemon, but just the origin of the crystals that fulfill desires and or time travel. Terapagos in itself might not be a god of realities or dreams, meaning you can't ask or use Terapagos to make your dreams real, but the treasure that Terapagos creates and protects is probably what you would have to use and come into contact with to make your desires a reality. I guess a good way to look at it, because you can see what Sada said. The crystals here in Area Zero possess a peculiar energy. This energy can alter the function of living things and optimize the performance of machinery. It's the same energy that allows Pokemon to terrestrialize, right? And we've determined that this energy crystallization is linked to a being we call Nanana, so Terapagos most likely. The interlocking hexagonal plates that compromise its shell must somehow cause this phenomena, which I've dubbed terrestrializing. And his final post said here, okay, cool, help me out, but I think that I cracked this. This is about his previous riddle. He wanted us to battle on whether we think if the whole Area Zero plot will be about time travel or imagination becoming real. It's the two conflicting theories. Or if it just won't be explained. This book is a brief history of mankind, according to this author. At the beginning, he talks about the biggest moments in mankind's history, which he called the cognitive revolution, which is basically the moment that cavemen became thinkers and dreamers, right? Developed language and used their imagination to create folk tales, religions, and stuff like that, etc. I won't explain it all because it's perfectly summarized below. Just read the pics I've attached. I mean, the amount of times imagination is mentioned, but the question still remains. Do you agree with this book? Ku isn't saying we would agree with it. He's leaving it up to us to decide and battle on which side is correct. I guess it's a case of, like, both are right and wrong at the same time, right? Like, it's like basically the Schrodinger's cat of the Pokemon theories, right? It both is and isn't. It both is time travel, but isn't, because what is time travel, right? Like, time travel as a concept didn't exist for a caveman until we thought of the concept of, imagine if we could go back in time. What is time in itself? Again, I'm not going to get too philosophical. There's too much shit to go into here. But what we do have here is Kayla saying, Ku's post have been about collective human experience. This is what is contained within Terapagos' crystals. All experiences that we ever were and ever will have. Yeah, kinda. I think we believe the same thing, except for time travel. I think that's just a product of the Terra Crystal's power. Basically, the Terra Crystals can do anything, lol. Which is just insane if you want to think about it. Like, they really just went nuts with this shit. They went all ape shit on it, which is just insane. But I want to ask you guys to let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think it is? Is it just point blank time travel, or is it imagination? Is it imagination, or is it literally the concept of everything is inside of this tree and Terapagos guards it, and that, you know, and if you get in contact with it, literally anything that can be fathomed by humanity, Pokemon, etc. will come into existence. Is that the case? Again, we don't really know. We're gonna have to wait and see, but I want to know your thoughts and opinions. Moving on, we have this one. Home maintenance announced for Indigo Disc, which means we again have a time frame for when it should release worldwide. Looks like to be almost exactly the same time as a Teal Mask, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. No, there won't be any leaks before this time, but once again, once it begins. So yes, once the actual thingy is out, we will have all the leaks and stuff will be happening once. Like, people will data mine it and shit. The moment this thing drops, they're going to be data mined. But until then, it's not really, you're just going to have to, like, play it and, you know, discover it on your own. So that's pretty much what we have on that. Moving on to this is actually an interesting one. So there is this new feature that's going to be called, like, the league club. I'm not really sure exactly what the name is, but there are 23 possible people you can invite, right? So 8 gym leaders. You have the obvious gym leaders. There is 3 Elite Four. You've got Geta, right, the champion. You've got 7 Paldean teachers you can invite. Clavel, Nimona, Arvin, and Penny are also a few. According to the codes, you're also allowed to rematch the BB students and Cyrano. Likely, you don't need to invite them from this page. But yes, so you're going to be able to invite a few people, and I guess a few of them are missing here on the page, but those are pretty much those we know. Some still have their hopes up for random returning characters in the Indigo Disc, but people who have paid attention know that all the returning characters from the Teal Mask data mine, there's still a small chance we get 1 to 2 surprises, but I really wouldn't count on it. So basically, we're not going to be seeing characters from the past. That's pretty much all we know about that. There's not going to be any returning characters, which is unfortunate, But hey, we'll have to accept what we can get. And this one is next one. So this is the Synchro ability again. So we already talked about it a bit. And here is some thoughts by Soul. He says, the Synchro machine, everyone's thinking Black and White remakes and then Legends Unova are the next games. Well, what if instead there's a new game with this as the new gameplay? This is what I was saying. So I actually haven't read this post by him. I just opened this because I just went through the threads because he usually like tags me and stuff. But it's exactly the same thing I was thinking. Is it possible that this is a feature that's hinting to the next thing? So like he says here, everyone's thinking Black and White remakes. There's a new game with this as the new gameplay. Black and White 3, but from the Pokemon's perspective, an entire game where you explore, battle, befriend as a Pokemon. It would actually like be so sick if that was the case. Like I would love that. On the official website, they say this cheeky line. It appears that this device is still a prototype. Why would they emphasize that? Which I believe is a blatant tease to this feature being the test and prototype for a full version of this gameplay that will be in a future Pokemon game. Game Freak always tests out new features in their games that they then use for more prominent features in their next game. It's exactly what I was saying. The open world concept, they kept iterating at it until they got it right. And they always do this. They test stuff in one game until the next thing, right? For example, just think about it. The wild area in Scarlet and Violet's open world. Exactly what I said. I really think this is it. Remember, you heard it here first. That's the thing. I thought of the same thing. I hadn't actually read this post yet. I actually just saw this top part. And like I said, another very probable scenario with this prototype mechanic is that it could be simply implemented as a new mainstay feature in mainline Pokemon games. Something that would basically be the new HMs or new ride Pokemon like Koraidon, Miraidon, and PLA ride. So that could be another thing. But like he says here, imagine in Generation 10, instead of a ride Pokemon, in order to get from one point to another or to get items we wouldn't normally be able to get, we can swap between being the player character and one of our Pokemon to accomplish these tasks and maybe even complete other side quests. Another option could be that maybe this is a tease to a new and improved Mystery Dungeon or Pokepark game coming soon. Could be the case too, but I think this is a mainline feature thing. I think this is going to be related to the next games. Like the Paradox Unova games are going to have something to do with this feature, this specific feature. Why is this feature being added in here and not in Kitakami? Why is it here? Why is it a prototype? Why is it specifically saying a prototype? Like that's an early test version. That's a little bit sus to me. Like that is actually not little sus. That's very sus, man. That's very strange. Very specific. But I think that might be the case here. I think that's what it might be hinting at. So, again, shout out to Soul for sharing this as well. I agree with this theory 1000%. But I agree with the original post. This is what I think might be the most likely scenario. So, moving on to the next thing. We already talked a bit about this. But yeah, here again, we just saw like the whole like, tunnel down there in Area 0, the bottom of it. But that pretty much summarizes those things. So the only thing we really have left to go through now, as we've gone through most of Ku's posts, the last thing we have to talk about is going to be this right here. If this page can load, because there we go. Right. So this is the list. If you guys go into PokeOS, you guys can actually see this list of the returning Pokemons. These are the confirmed ones that we have so far for the second DLC. So we, of course, have all the starter Pokemon going to be returning. You guys already know about some of these. Alolan Vulpix has been shown up. Galarian Slowpoke, the Oddish line, the Doduo line, the Seal line, Execute. We also have the Alolan Executor, right? Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, Rhyhorn. We got Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres. So legendaries are back too. There are about 25 legendaries. We got Magmar, Lapras. Chikorita line is also here. Totodile line is also here. Blossom, Galarian, Slowking, Skarmory, Smeargle, Tyrogue, Magby, Raikou, Entei, Suicune, Lugia, Ho-Oh, of course. Gen 2 Legends. Trico line, Torchic line, and Mudkip line are back as well. So these are all the Gen 3 Pokemon. You guys can just pause the video if you want to look through these specifically, but I'm just going to be skimming through them because I don't want to spend too much time on this. But I just thought it would be interesting to update you guys on how much we have here right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is pretty much that list. I don't really know what else to tell you. That's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching. I'll be live tomorrow. I'll already be live like 2 hours before the DLC drops. Maybe even 3 hours before the DLC drop. I will be already live on YouTube. I'll be streaming the full playthrough and making video guides as I'm streaming it. So if you guys want to come by, please do so. It'd be very appreciated. I want to thank you all for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye-bye.